We have Dre. He is the owner of a fitness place, a gym, but in addition to that, he really uses it as an outlet to pastor people, to pour into people, and to speak over their life, which is so cool. And then we have Kendall. He's going to tell you a story. It's pretty amazing. He was NBA bound at one point, and then God came into his life and spoke to him. You're going to hear all about that story. It's so incredible. So let's dive right in, and I'm going to have each of them spend just 5 minutes sharing kind of their backstory, how they came to know Jesus. Dre, I want you to just share a little bit about, you told me this really cool story about when you did enter kind of, I want you to share your background. You have a very unique background of what you studied, and then kind of what kind of the journey God took you on, and then what you're doing today. Because if people heard your background, they'd be like, so how did you get from over here to over there? And I think that's the story for a lot of people, and what they don't realize, and what a lot of us think is like, we have to have it all figured out right now. And I want to just give you like a huge sigh of relief in the room. You don't have to have it all figured out. Life is a journey, and there are places where God's going to lead us and take us. And so I love your story and just how you've listened to God and how he's taken you on this pathway, this journey along the way.
Okay. So basically, what I really wanted to do and I had a passion for was music. My mother was a singer. She was in the music industry. So pretty much that was my career. So try to shorten up the story. Pretty much God speaks to me through dreams. So I had a dream. You know, my mother gave up on her music career, and I saw her crying in a room, and I was like, Mother, what's wrong? And she was like, you know, I didn't make it, this and that. So I'm like, you know what, Mom, I want to continue that dream for you. So pretty much, she said, are you serious? I said, yes. So my mother bought me my first keyboard, and it was a Korg. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it was a Korg Triton, and I was pretty much the only one with that keyboard, right? And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what quantizing was. I didn't know anything. So pretty much, I just started producing, pretty much self-teaching myself. And my mother actually put me in engineering school, which was SAE. So I went there, I learned Pro Tools, I learned how to do video editing, movie editing, and God was just giving me these dreams that, you know, I was just in a studio with so many celebrities, and at that time, I didn't really understand. I would hate when I wake up, because I'm like, why am I keep waking up? I want this to be real. So I would literally pinch myself and say, am I dreaming? And this dream was happening multiple times. So me and my brother, we were performing, we were artists. So we started performing, doing open mics, rapping and things like that. And it just wasn't working out in Miami, Florida. So my mother told me, God spoke to me and said, you know, you're supposed to be in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm like, Atlanta, Georgia? Why Atlanta out of all the places? We don't know nobody there. So, you know, she was like, that's where you're supposed to be. And, you know, when I started telling people, that's one thing you gotta do. You gotta be careful what you tell people. When God speaks to you and you tell other people, sometimes they can't see it. And sometimes it can look crazy to them. So, and it hurts when it comes to the person that's closest to you. That was my father. So, you know, I told my father, you know, we're gonna move to Florida to pursue my career. He's like, that's not gonna work. You know how many people trying to do music? You know how many people trying to do that? It's millions of people. You don't know anybody there. So what are the chances of that happening for you? So that pretty much like crushed me. Like I was like, man, you know, maybe I can't do this. So my mother has always been the one that pushed me, and she's always wrote my dreams down. Like she has a dream book to this day of every dream that I had, and it all came to pass, right? So we ended up moving to Atlanta, Georgia. Well, first we went to Alabama. We were homeless for about a month or 2 months. We were staying at my uncle's house in his garage. I set up my whole studio there. My mother sold her condo, bought me some studio equipment. You know, I had an MPC. You know, I had my Apple laptop, like I had all that stuff. So we ended up moving here. I got a job at UPS, and I was just doing open mics, producing. And it got to a point where I started getting angry at God, because I'm like, I gave up on my relationship at the time. I left her for trusting God, and I was like, God, this is not happening for me. Like, I'm doing all these open mics, I'm struggling, I'm broke. And, you know, we ended up doing one open mic, and we came outside, there was a boot on our car. And I literally only had like $20 in my pocket, and that was all the money I had. And I said, you know what, I give up. That's it. And you know, I like to work out. So one day I was like, you know what, I don't go to clubs, I don't party, I don't drink, because everybody was like, you gotta go to the club and meet the right people. That's the only way you're gonna get on. You gotta network. And I'm like, I don't go to clubs. So I'm like, why am I even doing this? I don't hang around certain people. So I ended up going to LA Fitness, and I bumped into this guy, and he was like, do you compete? And I was like, no, I don't. He was like, you should. He was like, what do you do? And I was like, I do music. And he was like, really? He said, do you know Akon? I was like, yeah, I do. I know who Akon is. He was like, I work for him. And I thought, man, you lying. You don't work for him. And he was like, for real. So he ended up asking me what I was doing later on that day. He was like, you got anything planned? And I was like, no. And he was like, I want you to come to the studio with me. So we ended up going to the studio, and guess who walked out the door? Akon, right? And I was like in shock. I was like, I can't believe it. And I went in the bathroom, I called my mother, and I was like, Mom, you won't believe who I'm standing in front of. I'm standing in front of Akon right now. And, I ended up, making a long story short, I ended up getting signed to Akon, and, I started pretty much producing for people, producing for artists and things like that. And I would say the music industry wasn't what I thought at the time. One of my best friends took me to this lady's house. She was a pastor, and this is when I first got my deal, and she prophesied over me, and she said, this is not what God wants you to do. And at the time, I thought she was like, you're crazy. I'm like, what do you mean? This is what I moved here for. Why would God allow this to happen if this wasn't what he wanted me to do? So she said that God is going to put you through the pain of a woman in labor, and he wants you to eat the word of the Bible, but this is not what he wants you to do, because you're not doing it. The music that they're having you do is not worshiping him. So I started having these visions and these dreams that God was showing me that I was pretty much being separated from my music career, and I would see a bus, and that bus would leave me. And I kept having this dream over and over and over, but I was ignoring it. And, I end up, later on down the line, I end up getting this really huge deal. I had my daughter on the way. I had no money. I couldn't pay my phone bill. And I was getting a $100,000 deal with Sony. And I was supposed to move to LA. And I was very excited about it. I'm like, wow, this is going to change our lives. I got everything planned out. And I got this dream, and God told me to walk away from it. So I was like, God, like, what do you mean you want me to walk away from this? This is a life-changing situation. This is what I moved here for. And that told me that my plan wasn't God's plan. So pretty much, I didn't listen to God the first time from the dream, so I told him, yes, I'll sign it, right? So I ended up getting tested again. I had another dream that God told me that you're going to get a chance to take this test again, and you make the decision if you're going to fail it or pass it. So the deal came back around. They said, okay, are you sure you want to sign this? And I said, no, I can't sign it. And it was like, what do you mean you can't sign it? You know how many people would kill to have this opportunity? You get to work for Akon, you get to work for Sony, you get to produce for the biggest artists. This is what you moved here for. You get to take care of your family. And I was just like, I can't do it. I have to, God, this is not what God wanted me to do. And I want you guys to understand, music is all I knew. Like, I was doing this for almost 6 years of my life. And so I ended up walking away. I lost everything. I lost my family. I was staying with my mother. It got to a point where I was even suicidal. Like, I tried to take my life multiple times. I lost weight. I was literally 175, and I went down to like 115 pounds. I wasn't eating, and I literally wanted to die. And I swear, I was just felt hopeless, and I was like, my life is over. I'm never going to get anything. This is it for me. So the day I really tried to take my life, God sent someone to me. It was a close friend of mine, and they actually came to my mother's house, and they looked into my eyes. Nobody really believed me. You can tell somebody, I don't want to live, and they think you're always so strong. So they look at you like, stop playing around. That's not serious. But she was the only one that took me serious. She was the only one that looked at me and said, wow, Dre, this is serious, I believe you. And she just started praying for me and just being there for me. I had a best friend, he was praying for me, pouring into me. And he told me, Dre, it's not over. You're gonna own your own gym one day. And I was like, what do you mean I'm gonna own my own gym one day? Are you crazy? And at the time I had got a job at Kroger. So imagine, I was making some good money. I was making almost $4,000 a track to making $6 an hour, right? So I was in the grocery store working, and my best friend was like, you need to get certified, Dre. You need to get certified. So I'm like, all right, let me do it. I ended up getting certified, and I passed the test, but I still didn't believe. And I was like, well, God, you know what? Let me just try and see. So I went to LA Fitness, and I was just working out. And the manager at LA Fitness approached me, and he said, do you need a job? And it was just so perfectly in timing. And I was like, yeah, actually, yes. He was like, are you a trainer? I was like, yes. Are you certified? Yes. So I became a trainer at LA Fitness. And I started off with one client, right? My first check was, and I'm not lying, $15, right? And I felt like God was telling me, don't do it for the money. I'm gonna take care of you. Don't do it for the money. Just like with my music career, walk away from this 100,000. I want to show you that I'm in charge and that the money's not in charge. So pretty much I went up from 1 client, 10 clients, 15 clients, 20 clients, 30 clients, to a point where LA Fitness, they never seen anything like that before. So they end up moving me to the director of the whole gym. And I asked my manager at the time, why me? Like, I don't know how to sell anything. I don't know how to do it. He said, because you're special and you got something, Dre. The only thing you have to do is just be yourself. So I got in the position, and the devil was just working overtime. Like, oh man, at that time, I'm just going through situations with my daughter's mother, going in and out of court, just going through so much trauma. Actually I was in a relationship at the time. They left me, and I feel like it was all, the devil always tried to use distraction to try to pull me away. So I ended up getting promoted to the director, and my first day I sold almost 7 deals, right? So I went from 7 deals to 8 deals to 9 deals to writing $60K a month, and they told me we'd never seen anything like this. And that job changed my life. I actually made more money doing that than my music career. Wow. So God has showed me this is what I had planned for you. Now, to fast forward, I'm winning. This job got me my car. It got me a house. That's where I met my wife, so life is good. So the pandemic hit, and, my wife's father came to me. He said, I have a word for you. And I was like, what is it? And he was like, God wants you to quit LA Fitness. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, not again. God is asking me to leave. Like, first he asked me to leave my music career. Now he's asking me to leave this. I don't understand it. Like, this is where I'm making all my money. And, he was like, God wants you to trust him. As soon as you make that decision, everything's going to take off for you. So at that time, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. How am I going to pay my mortgage? How is this going to work? So the gyms had closed down. I don't know if you guys remember during the pandemic, everything shut down. And LA Fitness was about to open back up. And I said a prayer to God. I said, God, if this is what you want me to do, send me one person. That's all I need. I don't need 5. I don't need 6. Send me one person. And I lie to you not, a week before the gym opened, he sent me one person. And I'll never forget her name. Her name was Dana. And I asked her, I said, how'd you find me? She's like, Joe, I said a prayer and you popped up on my computer screen. And he sent me her, then I got another person, then I got 6 people before the gym actually opened. So God put me in a position where I had to make a choice. Because my hours at LA Fitness, I couldn't train them, so I had to either let them go or let the job go. So, believe it or not, I went back to work, and I decided not to let the job go, but then I was like, you know what? I gotta trust you, God. So I ended up quitting LA Fitness, and everything just took off. I started training at the trunk of my car. I had no equipment. I went to Academy Sports. I bought a battle rope and some bands. That's all I started with. And I always let that stop me because I always thought you needed to have everything. So I'm gonna let you guys know, it's not about what you have. It's about what you do with it. When God called you to do something, you just gotta start. A lot of us don't start because we feel like we need all this equipment, we need all this material. No, start with what you have. So I ended up starting, and I told God, I said, God, I need you to help me. I need you to at least give me enough money to be able to get a location before it gets cold. So God ended up helping me get like $15,000 in roughly 7 months that I had built up by training clients, and God was my promoter. I never did any promotion. I never did any marketing. He just sent people to me. And it was about to get cold. I had a lady walk up to me at the park while I was training, and she said, I have a word for you from God. And she said, you're walking in your calling right now, and God wants you to trust him, and he's going to take care of you, and you're going to minister to people through training and fitness. So pretty much I started looking for a location. I started getting worried. It was getting cold. I couldn't find nothing. And I kept seeing the number 1100. I don't know why. I kept seeing the number 1100. And I found this space, and my mother said, you see the number on the door? And it was 1100. So I ended up calling, and everything happened so fast. It was just quick. I got into the location. I had the money and everything for it. But I ended up talking to this lady, and she was a financial advisor, and she broke my spirit. Again, you gotta be careful who you tell who you tell things to. And she told me, "Are you crazy? How can this happen? We're in a pandemic. You're not at LA Fitness. Nobody's gonna come knocking at your door. Nobody knows who you are." And when she said that to me, I believed it, and I was like, "Wow, she's right." But then I had my wife to confirm to me that no, you know who you are. You gotta know who you are. You can't let people speak over you. So I ended up sticking to it, guys. And then something else happened. The enemy wasn't done. All my clients left me because, I was charging a little bit of money and I had overhead now. So I had to raise my price up just a little bit. And that hurt my feelings because I'm like, man, were they training with me because they like me, or were they training with me because of the price? So I said, God, I always talk to God. So I said, God, I need you to help me. Please just send me new people. I need you. And I just felt like it wasn't going to work. And God sent me a person, and I wasn't even fully open. I had nothing on the ground. I was a lawyer, and he paid me what I was asking for and more. So it went from him to 2 people to 3 people to 4 people to 5 people to 6 people. And now, we're bringing in almost 100K a year. Wow. Right? So I want to say you just got to trust God and listen to God. And when God speaks to you, he speaks to you in so many different ways. God can speak to you in dreams. God can speak to you through a person. You just got to pay attention. And always believe in yourself. And when you have a vision, people are going to always try to tear that vision down. When they see that it's so big, they're going to always think you're crazy. But you just got to know you're not crazy and know what God promised you.
That's so good. Thank you, Joy. That's so awesome. Come on, y'all. Okay, Kendall. So talk to us a little bit. Who do you want to ask it to?
Sure, Dre.
Dre? Okay.
How do you know that, like, when you feel like there's no one there, how do you know to keep going?
That's a good question.
I felt that plenty of times. Well, what works for me is when I feel like no one's there, usually when I feel like that, I try to do it within my own strength. And when I start not including God in what I'm doing, and I feel like, I got this, that's when I start feeling alone, and I feel like, man, I want to quit. But when I go back to God and also get around people that's going to pour into you, because when you're constantly doing something in business and you're pouring into people, sometimes you need somebody to fill your cup. Because one thing about me, I wasn't having people around me to fill me up. So I wanted to quit every other month, all right? So I would say you want to start this, just pray to God, include God with everything that you're doing, talk to God. He is your number one. He is the person that is going to motivate you. He's the person that's going to keep you moving. God will give you visions. Remember, he's your father, and you got to talk to him like he's your father. Get people around you that can pray for you. Get people around you that you can talk to, that can give you counsel, and that can just keep on, I would say, continue to pour into your life. That's going to be important. Because if you don't have that, you're going to always just be on a highway, just going full speed, and you can crash at any time.
That's what we don't do.
It's for Dre. How did God sound like when he talked to you in your dreams?
Well, I would say wasn't really a sound, it was a feeling, right? More of God would give me that vision, and when I woke up, I just felt it. Like I felt it in my spirit. So, for example, God pretty much spoke to me at the grocery store. He spoke to me through a lady, and she told me God wants you to elevate your business. And I was going through a lot at that moment. I felt, man, I'm not doing enough. I'm not good enough. This enemy was beating me up, and she was like, God wants you to know that he's going to elevate you. He wants you to get a bigger space. He has a blessing for you. And her little daughter even spoke to me. She was about your size, and she said, her little daughter said, God is going to take care of you. He's with you. And then I walked away with a feeling, right? So, God is going to always talk to you in many different ways. So it's not really a voice. It's going to be that feeling. Like you can go down the street, somebody can say something to you. Like, God told me to tell you that he wants you to go start this business, right? And you might be like, wow, I was thinking about that. So it's going to motivate you. So that feeling is going to get elevated to motivate you more.
That's so good. Who do you want to ask it to?
Sure, Dre.
Dre? Okay.
How do you know that, like, when you feel like there's no one there, how do you know to keep going?
That's a good question.
I felt that plenty of times. Well, what works for me is when I feel like no one's there, usually when I feel like that, I try to do it within my own strength. And when I start not including God in what I'm doing, and I feel like, I got this, that's when I start feeling alone, and I feel like, man, I want to quit. But when I go back to God and also get around people that's going to pour into you, because when you're constantly doing something in business and you're pouring into people, sometimes you need somebody to fill your cup. Because one thing about me, I wasn't having people around me to fill me up. So I wanted to quit every other month, all right? So I would say you want to start this, just pray to God, include God with everything that you're doing, talk to God. He is your number one. He is the person that is going to motivate you. He is the person that's going to keep you moving. God will give you visions. Remember, he's your father, and you got to talk to him like he's your father. You know, get people around you that can pray for you. Get people around you that you can talk to, that can give you counsel, and that can just keep on, I would say, continue to pour into your life. That's going to be important. Because if you don't have that, you're going to always just be on a highway, just going full speed, and you can crash at any time.
Love that. All right.